Hi guys, welcome to the blue chair session. Yeah, I'm trying out something new, something different from what we usually do. Yeah, hope we're well. And today we're talking about a topic that I've been thinking about. It's been on my mind for quite a while, and I guess it started from some things that I went through, and then we had a discussion with some of my cousins, and we were talking about how to deal with some of the situations that we've never healed from. And in my language, we have a saying that I'll just translate that says that a parent never does anything wrong, which implies that if whatever the parent does, they're right, and so they'll never apologize for what they did, even if it was something that wasn't right. And so most times we find ourselves dealing with situations or hurting from these situations. And so, I guess that was a question that one of my cousins posed. I don't know if they posed it or something, but it was like a question of how can we deal with some of this trauma, because we don't want to pass it on to the next generations. And I guess that more deep-rooted question would be, how do we deal with offense, most especially when we will never get an apology. And most times this offense is from people who we meet constantly, and so that means this issue is often brought back not really. We are often reminded of this situation. And I think we're having a discussion with my friend who was telling me about someone else whose stepmom really abused her. I think it was physical beating or something like that, and it was so bad that she had to report her to the police, and the stepmom was taken to prison, and then now they're out and still with the dad. And so that person is constantly faced by the person who offended her, and since it's a parent, there's a big probability that they never said sorry and will never say sorry. So which is a question, and many of us, I guess, we've experienced it in one way or another. We are often being offended by others, and unfortunately, if you're lucky enough, you'll get an apology. But what happens when you don't get an apology? And so I wrote down something, so at this time I'm not So one of my points is pray about it. There is a hymn, what a friend we have in Jesus. I've forgotten what the title is, but there's a verse that says, oh, what peace we often forfeit, oh, what needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Many times we carry unnecessary pain because we do not take things to God in prayer. And praying about it may sound cliche, it's something, of course, every Christian will be telling you, pray about it, and I use it a lot of times, pray about it. But there's something about prayer. I think I keep saying this, and you'll hear it over and over again because I've experienced it. There's something about taking to God your heart, telling him, you know what, God, this is what's happening, and this is how I feel, being raw with God and telling him everything that we feel. There's something about that just heals us. And most times in that process, God helps you even realize that you might have been in the wrong, or or he will bring out like verses to console you or things like that. But it's a very like critical step in healing from some of these offenses, most especially since most times you'll never get a sorry, or even when you get a sorry you'll be like, I don't think they meant it. Like it's sometimes very hard, but prayer really helps. So number one, let's take everything to God in prayer, because what else can we do? Sometimes we are like so helpless. The other thing is that God fights our battles. We've seen it so many times in the Bible, whereby when Israel was going out, there's a time when Israel was coming out from slavery and going into the promised land, and Moses was telling them, this is in Exodus, let me get that, yeah. This was in Exodus chapter 14. And I'll read from verse 13 to 14 that says, Moses answered the people, do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. So the problem is, as humans, and most especially these days, we've been told to fight. There's like a lot of fight going on. Fight for people's rights, fight for your rights, and I think that's like our natural defense to, natural response to go, on the defensive side, fight. But when we learn to rest in God and taking it to God, one would say take it to God in prayer, and then like resting in Him and letting Him fight, He'll actually fight our battles. I've seen it work most times, because I think some people will see it as a defense mechanism, or weakness, that's what they'll call it, but many times I've seen that it actually works when I let God take care of it. When you let God take care of a situation, He takes care of it in ways we would have never thought it would actually happen. So when we rest, and that's that the verse 14 was saying, verse 14 of Exodus was saying that you need only to be still. Just be still, rest in your Father, and you'll see Him fight. And when we rest in Him, we are showing Him that we are actually trusting in Him, and so He'll fight for us. The other thing is, we need to remember in these situations to protect our hearts. Most times when we get into these situations, some of them, of course, it's like out of our control. The enemy is aiming for your heart, so you need to protect your heart at all costs. And I'll just read a verse. When in Genesis, when Cain and Abel sacrificed to God, God found Abel's sacrifice pleasing, so He accepted it, and for Cain, he rejected it. And so Cain was really jealous, and this is what God told him. Genesis chapter 4 verse 6. I'll read from verse 6 to 8. And he says, then the Lord said to Cain, why are you so angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, you will not be you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it. Yeah, I'll stop at that verse. So this is what the enemy is after. Most times he's after your heart, and so we have to guard our hearts at all course. This is something we need to remember, and that's why we pray. That's why we let God fight for us, because we are protecting our hearts. And most times, because He just needs a small I always imagine my heart being like a house, and so when we are being offended, it's like the enemy is cracking, like he's like knocking, hitting walls, like trying to get in. And if there is even just like, if there is a crack and a hole comes in, that's like he's entryway, and so that's what he's fighting. And so we need to protect our hearts at all costs. That's what we need to remember. And so that's why we do not fight like the world fights, because most times I notice that when I react to a situation, I get so angry, I get so frustrated. And so most times keeping quiet and letting God, when I resort to keeping quiet and just letting God take care of it, I become peaceful. The anger goes away so fast. And sometimes like I don't go into that rage thing, because I let God take control of it. And so that's what happens. We should protect our hearts, because that's what the enemy is after. And once we know that, I guess it makes it clear why we shouldn't fight like the world fights. And the other point I had was to know who the real enemy is. And I guess I alluded to it when I talked about protecting our hearts. Your enemy is the devil. It's not the people that you're fighting with. It's not the situation. It's the enemy who has created that situation, so that because his work is to steal, kill, destroy. So if he's not stealing your joy, if he's not stealing your family, he's killing your joy, he's killing your family. He's still kill and destroy, like he's destroying relationships. That's what he does. He's just distracting. So when we know who the real enemy is, we apply the right tools. Yeah. And so prayer, nothing else. And I'll just read a verse still that goes that talks about like who the real enemy is. That's Ephesians 6. 6. I'll read from 11. It says, "Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." So once we know who the real enemy is, we'll be able to fight. I know the world is telling us to fight like everyone else fights, but when we rest, when we stay in him, he'll fight our battles. We'll definitely emerge victors. There are so many stories in the Bible where people just let God fight, and he did. And once you let God fight for you, you realize how sometimes small we are, and how our fights are not really like the way God fights, because he does it in such a clean way, in such a loving way. I think I said it earlier, sometimes you realize that it was you in the wrong. So he fights clean. He fights to put back things and not to destroy like the devil, because the devil is just... Imagine you had a kid and they're just destroying everything, or a dog destroying everything, but his fight is, keeping everything together. Even if he's putting it apart, so that he can now put it all together in a better way. Yeah, this has gone on longer than it usually goes on, but I hope you've taken out something, and I guess we'll have like another topic. We'll talk about this I'll add on to this another time if I feel convicted to. But otherwise, have a good day, and I hope this has helped. Love you. Bye.